Hi guys, John Florez. Here we go again, this time episode 3 of the Backroom Stories. Remember, this is politics, not music for the most part. I really feel you need to know what went on behind the scenes when you got a whole bunch of people, the producer, the artist, and others, all thinking that this is a lot of fun. Well, the music was fun. The politics was often hidden, and if it wasn't hidden, it wasn't very pleasant. And it affected all of our lives. It affected our incomes. It affected our families. It just affected everything. So I don't get a lot of pleasure out of telling you these stories, but I think you might find them interesting. So I'll just keep going. Okay, episode 3. This cuts to Linda Seals getting a singles deal at A&M after she was part of the group LAX on A&M. And they broke up the group. A&M broke up the group. Kip Cohen in particular, my boss, said, we're going to offer you a singles deal on Ron Canoli from LAX. They're calling him Ron Keith at the time, and Linda Seals. You'll get singles deals on both of them. In a future episode of these Backroom Stories, I need to talk to you about the politics at A&M Records. To this day, I don't know why the group was broken up. But we're just going to jet to Linda Seals' solo date. Remember, I told you there were 2 projects that I was sincerely embarrassed to have produced. Okay, now here we are at A&M 3-4 years later. She was 17 years old when I had her at Talent Associates, and now she's 20 years old at A&M. Okay, I announced to her that she had a solo deal and that the group had been broken up by Kip Cohen and A&M Records. She wasn't particularly thrilled about that, nor was I, but here we go. We were offered money. See, this is when I wasn't standing up for myself and my principles. Not that it might have mattered, because we might have just been dismissed altogether and not even gotten the singles deals. But in retrospect, I should have tried. I should have said, let's keep our act together a little longer with LAX, please. Please. Let's do one more session, please. But I didn't. I just accepted the money for doing Linda Seals' solo project and Ron Keith Canoli's project too. At this moment in time, Jan Manley, now my lifelong friend, who was one of the singers in the group LAX with Linda and Ron and Pat McManus, Jan said, I have some poems I wrote. I wondered whether you might want to turn them into songs. Well, she sent me 3, and I love them all. And I'm going to cover 2 of those here in a moment. They were Leave Me, which became Linda's single for A&M, and Something Borrowed, Something Blue. Those are the 2 I'm going to show you excerpts from. So we went in, we recorded the cuts. They came out quite nicely. They came in under budget as usual and quickly done as usual. That was kind of a problem for me. I shouldn't have been doing quickly done. And I should have been able to stretch the budget if I wanted to really push the productions to their max. But I didn't do that. Okay. Remember, I felt I was an assembly line producer. In and out, mix it down, send it out, and go on to the next project. So we finished Linda's orchestra date, and we were ready to go in and mix the following week. Darnielle and Diane, Darnielle Pershing, my arranger, and his wife, and Carol and I decided to celebrate the end of Linda's sessions and go to Laguna Beach for a weekend holiday. I was depressed the entire holiday because I felt that what we had put together, at least the tracks themselves, were too sweet and too gooey and way too middle of the road. Now, granted, Linda was going to be middle of the road with our doing ballads with her. Okay, I alluded in episode number 1 that Linda Seals was, in my opinion, at A&M Records, the Black Karen Carpenter. Kind of a soft, mellow, lightly soulful, but soulful. I would use some humor and say that my peers called me John Florez the Mocha Mix producer, which means I took black acts and watered them down to be more middle of the road and more pop, to try to get the acts to cross over on the charts from R&B to pop to adult contemporary, etc. Well, Linda Seals was my Mocha Mix artist. She was never going to be Willie Hutch, my former artist at RCA, nor Aretha Franklin or any of those, but she had a soft, mellow, low register sound similar to Karen Carpenter, whose money range was in her low register. Okay, so we went and we cut these middle-of-the-road ballads, and I felt they came out too sweet, and I was depressed that weekend in Laguna. I thought, oh my God, what have I done? Well, what's so interesting is once I mixed it, Linda said, what's happened to you? And I said, what do you mean, Linda? And she said, all of a sudden, everything is much sweeter than it used to be in your younger days. And even when we worked together before, I mean, this doesn't sound like John Florez, who did Grazing in the Grass and Do What You Want to Do and your other projects. This is getting saccharine. I don't know if she used that word, but that's what she meant. And I said, I know it. We went to Laguna this weekend, and I was absolutely forlorn because I knew I'd gone too sweet with you. And I'm really sorry. Now, I ended up down the line of being with Linda it was 5 label deals over 10 years. So we had our chances later on to go a little more upbeat, a little more dynamic, and a little more impressive forums for Linda to show off her talents. Okay, but not this time. So in retrospect, I'm going to show you the befores and afters. These tracks didn't have to sound as sweet as they sounded. Yes, they would be adult contemporary. Yes, they would be middle of the road and have some pop crossover. No way R&B, but they could have been more powerful and more commercial. Okay, I attribute this to working at RCA Studio A with my engineer Grover Helsley, who was an orchestral engineer. Based on the episodes that came before here, if you listen to my work at Hyders, those mixes, they didn't require anything. They were just bright and powerful and wonderful and all of that because of the live rooms at Hyders and the acoustic accuracy. Plus, I had Larry Cox, the famous engineer-producer, on Do What You Want to Do, and then I had Ed Barton, I had John Golden, and I had those live control rooms at Hyders, and the stuff just sounded great. There was no pumping up necessary because of the engineer I worked with and the quality of the room that I worked in. Okay, so now here we are at RCA with John, me, who leans sweet anyway, with orchestrations by Johnny Mathis's arranger, who is Darnielle Pershing, and then we've got Grover Helsley, the orchestral engineer. Okay, so you take me into a room with those speakers way far away, and you put me with Grover instead of the other engineers I mentioned at Hyders, who would force me in a smaller, more live room to bring everything up. Grover and I just sat back and we made this sappy, sweet 3-cut session mixed down with Linda Seals. I'm embarrassed with what we came up with, and I knew it before I left for Laguna. I knew they'd sound that way, and I didn't know what to do about it. I honestly didn't. Now I'm going to backtrack for 1 second and tell you that twice in my career to that point, I had been asked by the labels to pump my mixes up. One was on Rock the Boat, which was not a dance mix when it was released, and we made it into one because the label asked me to go do that. And the other one was Ronnie Dyson with Columbia Records, Captain of Your Soul. They said, John, we think that could be the single. Please go in and try to pump it up. And I did, but I failed. I didn't do a very good job with that. It's interesting that at A&M, no one came to me and said, John, this is way too sweet on Linda. Can you pump these up? But for the most part, at A&M, they left you alone. You just did your thing, and they released it. Okay, and remember, A&M was known for middle of the road, mostly, at the time. You had the Carpenters, you had Captain and Tennille, you had Sergio Mendes, you had Herb Alpert, who was not only the president of the label, but he had trumpet hits with the Tijuana Brass and a vocal hit with This Guy's in Love with You. There were a lot of sweet middle-of-the-road records coming out of there, and I thought this would be a perfect match if I did my job, which I didn't. I didn't give them powerful enough product. Okay, I'm sorry, Linda. I'm sorry, A&M. I could have done better. Okay, and as we will get into in a later episode, there was basically no promotion happening at A&M Records at the moment. Okay, we'll talk about that later. So for now, listen to my crummy mixes on Linda Seal's ballad dates, and we'll do the before and after, and you'll hear how I had the gall to hand those things overboard as they were to A&M to release them with what I should have handed the label. Not that it would have made any commercial difference at the time, okay, because of promotion issues. But on the other hand, I should have known better. I didn't know better. And I really only learned, I don't know, 3 or 4 years later, what I had been doing wrong. And basically what I needed was a more hip, current engineer who would make things more powerful with me in the control room. And I needed a control room that actually enhanced that process. But I wasn't there yet. I grew up in RCA Studio A with my first 2 gold records, and damn, I was going to stay there. RCA and Grover. Shouldn't have done it. Should have moved back to Hyder's in a heartbeat. Okay, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed it. All the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And this was episode 3. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys. And you take care. Here come the befores and afters. See you next time. Bye-bye. Uh-oh, this is an insert. I got through with the clip and I forgot to tell you something. What I want you to hear when you listen to the befores and afters is on the afters, you're going to hear on our Linda Seal's ballads, echo now being added to the track specifically for Linda, which is a recommendation from the famous, may he rest in peace, producer and engineer, Al Schmidt. Okay, Al's credits are just incredible. Go buy his book. Please support his efforts. In his book, he mentions Seventh Heaven, which is now available as a plug-in in terms of reverb and echo. You got lots of choices in that puppy. But for the most part, what it is, at least in terms of Linda, is lush. And it takes those mixes, even though they're sweet already. Okay, what, you're going to make her more lush, John? Yeah, listen to the after sections of the before and after clips and listen to the lush echo around Linda's voice. Thank you, Al. That's just wonderful. I never had that tool before, and because I bought your book, I knew him personally, but he had passed on by then, by the time I read the book. Anyway, I'm very grateful. I love that chamber for certain artists, Linda Seal's in particular. Okay, this is the end of the insert.
You can leave me, but leave me some